Hi, my name is Brian Atkins, and sometimes I can get really into a subject, so much so that it can border on obsession. Today, I'm obsessed with Kamen Rider Decade. Kamen Rider has a long and rich history that prior to 2009 I knew absolutely nothing about. Basically, I was watching a Transformer toy review channel on YouTube, and then they started reviewing Kamen Rider toys, so I decided to look into it. What I saw would change my life forever. A bit of context first though, although I know more about Kamen Rider now, I'll be doing this video on Decade's season as if it were a standalone because that's how I originally watched it. Kamen Rider Decade was apparently a very divisive season when it first came out, but I went in with zero expectations and I enjoyed it. Okay, so Kamen Rider Decade. Zero expectations. The first episode begins with a giant battle between like a bajillion motorcycle guys and all this CGI shit. Pretty sure that dragon was an old apartment building. That gorilla just looks dumb, quite frankly. Okay, eventually everyone explodes and dies and there's only two people left. This girl, who was in the middle of everything for some reason, and this dude, Decade. So the name, right? Decade is a pun on decade, as in this was a 10-year anniversary, but also is pronounced like decayed, like when things are breaking and falling apart. Neat! Anyway, turns out that huge fight was just in that girl's dream, so we don't really need to worry about it. Her name is Natsumi, and she works with her grandpa at a photo studio, and right now everyone's pissed off that the pictures look bad. The pictures were taken by this mad lad, Tsukasa Kadoya. The Yakuza shows up and tries to kick his ass over how bad the pictures are because they're embarrassing, but they should be more embarrassed by how easily he dodges their punches. Natsumi finds Tsukasa and tries to get him to apologize for the pictures, but we don't really have time for that because the world is ending. Some sort of Photoshop filter is going through the world erasing buildings and some CGI bullshit. Okay, so if you're anything like me, you're probably wondering what the hell is going on. Remember when Megatron decided to just bring the Transformers home planet to Earth? I hope you do, because I asked you to remember it twice. Anyway, that plan was to cause all of these destructive natural disasters because of gravity and whatnot. So this show is like that, but instead of one planet crashing into Earth, it's 10 Earths crashing into each other simultaneously. This means it's 10 times as dangerous as the Transformer plot to wipe out all life on Earth. So imagine Earth being wiped out 10 times at once and also rubber suit monsters are attacking you. Still think climate change isn't a big deal? So this random dude shows up and asks Tsukasa where his cards and belt buckle are, and at this point that's the least crazy part about the situation, really. Natsumi finds them in some rubble and passes them through the Photoshop filter for Tsukasa to use, and the transformation is awesome. Before we get into the fighting though, I want to point out that this is the toy I saw the review of that got me into the show in the first place, so I want to talk about the belt itself. This is my Kamen Rider Decade belt. It's a bit old and the batteries are dead, but that's okay. The way the belt works is by pulling on the two handles on each side. It slides the main buckle sideways, allowing you to insert one of these trading cards into it. By pushing the handles back towards the middle, this slides the buckle into the correct facing position and puts the logo of the selected Kamen Rider in the middle of it. When the batteries work, this also triggers red LED lights and announces the name of the card you've activated. Normally, the belt is designed to be used by small children, and it would not fit me. There are some workarounds to this, like buying a $600 collector's edition belt that is sized to fit an adult and comes with bonus content. I got this one for $60 though, so I was okay with just buying a belt extender off eBay and making it fit. I got some other accessories to go with it too, like the Ride Booker, which is a glorified deck box, and this other thing I'll talk about later. Back to the show. By using the cards in the belt buckle, Tsukasa transforms into Kamen Rider Decade, and his Ride Booker can turn into a gun or a sword, but only when he activates those cards for it. Sort of like in Yu-Gi-Oh! Those cards with the yellow backing to them are like spells and traps. The red-backed cards are like monster cards, and they allow him to turn into other Kamen Riders. Since this was the first Kamen Rider show I saw, I didn't know any of their names, but I liked it when he turned into them and gained cool powers like super speed or giant fire sticks. I also liked how even he doesn't know what's going on. All those CGI monsters keep attacking and Tsukasa's transform cards were all sent to the graveyard or something. Metaphors are hard. The weird guy from earlier is like, oh cool, you got your stuff, hey listen, we're all gonna die, but here's what you gotta do, this is important, okay, destroy everything, and Tsukasa is like, what? Natsumi and Tsukasa meet back up at Grandpa's photo studio, and Grandpa pulls down one of those photo backdrops which transports the whole studio into a different Kamen Rider world, essentially letting them travel through all of the other seasons I didn't watch. This one is the world of Kuga, where the main superhero fights alongside cops and has special powers. Tsukasa walks outside and his clothes change into police clothes, which is a running theme for the series. It's sort of like Doctor Who from here on out, and they go through all the other 9 worlds so that Tsukasa can destroy them. In the Kuga world, there are these crazy monsters who speak a crazy language, and Tsukasa saves the day by punching a woman in the face. See, it turns out the Power Ranger monsters don't like blood. Kuga is so impressed by Tsukasa punching a woman in the face that he decides to team up with him, and Tsukasa fully unlocks the Kuga cards. I guess from the grave... Why am I still doing this metaphor? One of the strongest monsters is like, "Who the hell are you?" which sets Tsukasa up for his catchphrase, "I'm a passing through Kamen Rider, remember that." Then he turns Kuga into a transformer flying surfboard bug thing so he can kick the monster in the face. I fucking love this show. Next up, Kiva World. Kiva is a 10-year-old vampire kid who plays the violin, but what he doesn't know is that the other rubber suit monsters don't like him very much. Kuga decided to follow Tsukasa for the rest of the show, and he tries to stand up for the kid while Tsukasa ends up fighting some random dude in a baseball stadium. But eventually they meet back up so that he can turn Kiva into a giant bow and arrow. Kiva doesn't go with him like Kuga did, but this little bat thing does, and sometimes it's literally just a toy held with a fishing line to save money on the budget. In Ryuki World, Natsumi is on trial for killing a guy, and Tsukasa is just like it was only a matter of time, which is such a dick move, but whatever. The world is basically the Ace Attorney universe, except instead of just yelling at the other lawyer, you end up transforming into a suit of armor, entering a mirror world, and fighting to the death. If you win, then your client isn't guilty. This is an amazing judicial system, and I think it's already being adopted in Australia. The guy in a tan hat is named Narutaki, and he hates Tsukasa, and he tries to kill him, but Tsukasa makes friends with a dragon lawyer and turns him into a dragon so he can fight a swordfish. In Blade World, Tsukasa is a chef. Kamen Rider Blade is also a chef, but he's a worse chef, so he gets his Kamen Rider powers taken away. When a monster shows up, though, Blade takes his powers back and is like, "Oh, I get it now. Tsukasa was a dick to me to show that true strength comes from inside." And Tsukasa's like, "Yeah, okay, sure," and then turns him into a giant sword. I love how the monsters react to this one. They're like, "Are you fucking serious right now?" In Fai's world, Tsukasa is just a tennis master and says there's nothing he's bad at, which is amazing. Also, werewolves exist now, and they're crazy. Kamen Rider Faiz feels like he doesn't deserve to be a Kamen Rider anymore because he was a werewolf, and that seems too complicated. Tsukasa turns him into a gun. This new guy shows up and steals the Faiz Kamen Rider belt afterwards. His name is Daiki, and we discover the next world that he's another Kamen Rider named Kamen Rider Dien. The next world is the Agito world, and the Agito season was like a sequel to the Kuga season, so Kuga gets some stuff to do this time. No one knows where Agito is. Kuga and Dien argue over who gets to use this G3 cop armor thing, but eventually both of them decide they don't really want it. Remember that girl Tsukasa punched in the face? She's back, and Kuga wants to protect her, but no one is safe from Tsukasa when he wants to punch them square in the kisser. Eventually Agito shows up and he's homeless. Dien shows off that gun card thing, and it can make copies of Kamen Riders if he steals Tsukasa's cards, and he can make that giant sword like Tsukasa can. It's like in Yu-Gi-Oh! When things happen. Agito also turns into a flying bug surfboard. In Den-O World, Tsukasa thinks he has to board a time-traveling train like in Back to the Future Part 3, but can't because he's too busy being possessed by the devil. The devil thing, which we don't know the name of yet, uses Tsukasa's train pass to turn him into Kamen Rider Den-O. This world is a little weird, and mostly it's just the main cast getting possessed by demons who make them dance or say catchphrases. Eventually they do get to go on the train, and it turns out that the time-traveling train is the thing that makes the least sense in the show, but it's hilarious and I love it. Anyway, Tsukasa and Den-O team up and travel back in time to 2008 to fight some monsters, and along the way we find out that Den-O's real power is being the devil. Kabuto World. Kabuto was the one that gave him super speed, so this one is really cool. It's about a little girl who lives with her grandma, but secretly the little girl is a rubber suit monster, but grandma doesn't seem to mind. The Narutaki guy is like, "Oh man, we're running out of Raya World, so this is gonna end soon," and Kabuto has been stuck going super fast for a few years. Tsukasa thinks he can beat him though if he uses this Fai's power that no one told me was a thing until just now, but it looks really cool. Kabuto turns into a giant flying bug surfboard. And finally, Hibiki World. Hibiki is a teacher to a kid who wants to become a demon, but the teacher doesn't want him to become one. Tsukasa decides to train him instead, but mostly shirks his responsibilities and hangs out. We find out the teacher was also a demon, and that was the whole point of becoming Hibiki, I guess, and also that Narutaki secretly told Natsumi back in the first episode that she was the only one who could defeat Tsukasa, which seems like it would have been a good information to have this whole time, but whatever. The teacher and kid reconcile, and the kid becomes a new Kamen Rider Hibiki just in time for all the Kamen Riders to team up and defeat a giant enemy crab through the power of music. Then Tsukasa and Natsumi went back home to Decade World, but whoops, it's full of evil monsters again, this time all of the evil versions of Kamen Riders. I cannot stress enough that I went into this show blind and had no idea what was going on. Natsumi finds a different Natsumi, and it turns out it wasn't their homeworld, but it was another Earth, and it turns out there were more than 10 this whole time. If you're getting the feeling that this shit is going to keep on going on forever, then you're absolutely right. Tsukasa gets an upgrade called a K-Touch though, and it clips onto the belt like this. See, I told you that extra part on the belt would be used. They go to Dian's world for a while, and we get some backstory to that character, but really all you need to know is that he's a thief, and he's gay for Tsukasa. Next! This one. Okay, so, you know how Kamen Rider just kind of looks like Power Rangers? Well, now they're in Power Rangers Samurai. He teams up with the Red Ranger and they trade giant swords and... No, yeah, I'm done. This is too crazy even for me. My name is Brian Atkins, and I'm obsessed with Kamen Rider. Please like and subscribe. Oh shit, I forgot about this magazine DVD choose your own adventure thing that ends with Tsukasa and Kuga making a giant cardboard gun that comes with a magazine to shoot a DVD monster. Oh my god.